Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market. Let's talk about what is happening in the market today. A pretty wild day in certain aspects, I guess you can say, for the market. Like NVIDIA, for instance, just down 3%, which I'll go over in my NVIDIA video, of course. But nonetheless, let's go over it. I'll give you my thoughts into what could be obviously a pretty big week for Tesla stock. For the first time, and as long as I can, has Tesla ever reported earnings while being worth $400 per share? It was not here, and it was not. This is the first time, I think, Tesla in the history of the stock. Yeah, I think it's the first time in the history of Tesla stock that it's reporting earnings while being pretty much in the $400 roughly per share. Obviously, maybe we'll fall, but yeah, could be a pretty massive week to say the least. But I'll give you my thoughts moving forward. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor, but if you do enjoy my technical analysis, my thoughts on the charts, etc., 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 I do share my thoughts every single day with my members down below in the description of the video for just $3 a month, mainly on Tesla stocks, sometimes other stocks as well that I, when I see an opportunity like Square or XYZ, I guess you can say, AMD sometimes, and sometimes other mega caps, right? Again, $3 a month, or for $5 a month, you get access to what I just said in the first tier, plus NVIDIA daily updates. Obviously, Tesla in the first tier and NVIDIA in the second tier are the main focus. But jumping into it, nonetheless, Tesla closing the day down about 1.5%, closing at $406.50 per share, which obviously compared to the market is going to be, a little bit of an underperformance on the day. Now, what does this actually mean moving forward for Tesla stock? Well, for the most part, honestly, despite this, down 1.4% roughly, it's been a pretty, flat stock, right? The volatility has definitely slowed down a little bit, because despite some intraday volatility movement, we've been kind of stuck within this little range as high as a 430 to as low as, pretty much today's low, right? We've been pretty much stuck in that, we'll just say $20-ish range, give or take, of course. So what does this actually mean though? What can we expect going into earnings? Well, again, Tesla is still ultimately in limbo land. Now it is closing in the bottom half of the Bollinger Band, which is starting to show a little bit of extra weakness. So my base, I can't think of the word. I don't know. I'm like blanking out. But my base case, I guess, if you will, for Tesla stock moving into earnings. This is the keyword is into earnings is still a sell-off, right? I want to see a sell-off down here somewhere, to as low as 400. But honestly, I want to see closer to like 390, like about $390 per share. That's where I want to see Tesla stock. Again, it lines up pretty close to the Bollinger Band, pretty close to the 50 EMA, which is the yellow line. And of course, pretty close and more or less pretty much at roughly that bottom trend line on this, rising channel potential bear flag that we are in. And what I'd want to see, and to me, the way that the most people will get, quote unquote, screwed, if you will, is a bear trap into earnings. Earnings happens, we get a massive pop back up to the top of the channel into the 440-ish region, but then we ultimately get rejected at 440 and we smack back down very aggressively and essentially play out this potential bear flag. This to me, if it were to happen, would be the most trappy move for both bulls and bears. Now, again, this is me just kind of thinking out loud. This is, there's nothing really to go off of this. This is just my kind of speculation, of course, but if I had to think of a way to mess with as many people as possible, this would be it. This would more or less be it. Again, down into earnings to about 390. Earnings happens, we rocket back up to about $440 per share, which that alone would be a rocket of about 15%, right? Which honestly wouldn't be too surprising for Tesla post earnings. Just for that to be a massive bull trap, and then we sell off even more aggressively down. We'll see. We'll see how this actually ultimately plays out. But that's kind of my potential speculation base case scenario on Tesla stock, but that's again speculation. Now, in terms of actual technical analysis, well, as far as I'm aware, again, like I said, the next move is still ultimately down to that 390 level, especially considering we're now in the bottom end of the Bollinger Band, right? So that shows a little bit of weakness until we essentially get closer to the bottom end of the Bollinger Band to where I think we start getting oversold, RSI potentially getting oversold. And once I see those kind of conditions be met, which again, I think will occur at about 390 per share, if of course we get that, that to me is where I start getting a lot more interested in that risk versus reward type situation, especially when you consider the market is a little bit on the more overextended side over here. here near the top of the Bollinger Band. RSI is overbought, etc., 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 right? Same with the QQQ, right? So the market does feel, short term at least, a tad overextended. You could see a small little, move to the downside on QQ, about $10 down, for instance, right? Which again could be what causes Tesla to also have a little bit of that extra weakness, if you will. So that's kind of my scenario right now, right? That's my first main target, right? Again, I expect that as of right now to hold. But you also want to zoom out and take into account two things, right? Again, we have this massive bear flag, which of course, you make the move down. Now we're essentially having this little bear flag like this potentially, right? And then we make our way down even further to probably closer to the mid 300s. Honestly, that could absolutely happen. Worst case scenario, if we truly play out this bear flag, again, usually what you do is you take the pole, you go to the bottom. This was the pole, and then you kind of let's say we break down. Just from this general vicinity, this could potentially take us all the way back to $280 per share. Remember that $280 per share? Remember how much trouble that level gave us on Tesla stock to get back up above? Remember this level right here? Not that long ago, ultimately, right? Really not that long ago. Remember that massive, massive resistance level? We've had several rejections over and over and over until we finally broke past it on that very large candle. We still have never retested that. So what if we ultimately finally come back down to retest that level sometime post earnings? I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying that's the base case. But if we in theory play out this bear flag, it actually lines up almost to perfection with that scenario. Again, not saying that's going to happen for sure. It's one of those things. It's better to wait for confirmation. So if we do lose this, rising channel, for instance, that could, of course, actually be a problem. But we haven't. So, I'm not going to pretend like that's some, crazy fear-mongering tactic, essentially, because, we haven't lost the channel. We're still in this channel. And for all I know, we can easily get a bounce. And maybe if the true bull case scenario plays out, we actually break out even further. Always a possibility. But as it stands right now, we let the levels decide for us. And that's just, an option to keep in mind as a potential possibility. So let that, sink in, I guess you can say. But that's kind of my overall perspective. Now, oops, I deleted the bull flag. Now, that's the more bearish perspective. The more bullish perspective is, well, we ultimately still had that massive rally, right? Tesla still had that massive rally. It still technically had this massive, massive bull flag, and it did technically break out. And we could come back down pretty aggressively to retest that bull flag breakout one more time, which also lines up with about, 390, maybe even closer to 380, but somewhere around that 390-ish level, which could also line up with that retest of the bull flag. And then ultimately from there, we just rocket back up to about $460 or so per share. That is also a possibility. So there's a lot of different possibilities right now because Tesla is setting up essentially two patterns within itself. One is very bullish and one is very bearish. And with the earnings pretty much right around the corner, I think it's no coincidence that it's put into this position where, in all honesty, it's a difficult read. It's a difficult read to truly get an idea as to what is to happen, next. Now, whenever a stock, or especially like Tesla stock, is put in a situation where there's essentially two patterns that are contradicting each other this aggressively, both of which can be either very bullish or very bearish, right? Which I just explained, of course. It's good to take another perspective from a different point of view. And in this case, of course, is the weekly. And the reason I don't want to say I lean bearish. I don't necessarily lean bearish. I just don't lean ultra bullish, I guess is a better way to put it. Mainly because, again, I've said this many times in the weekly. First of all, we closed below 415, which was that previous initial all-time highs. I'm not a fan of that. But I'm still just not a fan of the fact that we're so far away from the mean reversion line of the Bollinger Band right over there. We have always reverted back to the mean every single time Tesla stock has, on the weekly, has went too far away. Sooner or later, right? Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it takes a bit longer, but at some point or another, it has always reverted back to the mean, right? Same here. This was a bit of a longer one, but nonetheless, reverted back to the mean, right? It has happened every single time. Now, again, maybe we just go sideways. Maybe this catches up to us. Maybe we come straight down into it. Or maybe we meet in the middle. Again, nobody knows. But the point I'm trying to make is as long as we're this far away from it, it's hard for me to lean ultra bullish. Now, again, I don't want to seem like I'm ultra bearish or anything like that, but it's hard to lean ultra bullish here for me personally, just because of that factor. Because again, mean reversion is one of my strats, one of my main strats, and I just have less confidence in a stock when it's this far away, mainly because I just don't think the move up is going to be anything as significant as some people are probably expecting. Again, I'm talking about like well into the 500s. Without first some form of a reversion to the mean. Again, that's just my perspective. That's just my POV, right? I could be completely wrong. Maybe it does move to 500 or even 600 after earnings. there's a possibility. This is why, again, it's good to have long-term shares. And I have long-term shares sitting from like $160 per share or something like that. I actually did trim a bit of it a while ago, but it's maybe it's like 170 average now. I don't know. I don't really care. But the point is the fact that, you know, even if I'm quote unquote wrong, and let's say it does move to $600 per share after earnings or something ludicrous like that, great. I'm still making money on it, right? I'm still making money on it. And if it does come all the way down to 280, I'm still holding those shares. Maybe I'll sell cover calls, but I'm still holding those shares on my long-term account. So again, I'm not trying to be bearish because, you know, I'm fully out of Tesla and I just wanted to tank so I can buy more. Like, no, that's just my honest opinion, right? That's just my genuine opinion. But anyways, again, I like the mean reversion strat, and I don't like when a stock like Tesla, really any of the Max 7s, because they usually respect it pretty well, except for AMD sometimes, but they usually respect it pretty well when it's too far away from its mean average. I don't like that, right? I'm not a fan of that. So let's see, man. I mean, let's see how this plays out, right? Let's see how this ultimately plays out. Let's see how it actually goes. But that's kind of my general, you know, thought process moving forward, and why I'm not maybe like some other, people are just screaming bullish, $600 after earnings, $600. I'm just, you know, I try to be as realistic as possible. I always give you what I genuinely believe, whether it's bullish or bearish, I couldn't care less. And that's just my honest thoughts, right? That is just genuinely what I believe. And again, if I had to predict, if I had to look into my crystal ball, this into this would be roughly my moves expected. Into earnings happens, we pop, and then we sell off pretty aggressively too. Let's see though. Let's see. Tesla stock earnings are very difficult to predict. I mean, earnings in general are difficult to predict, especially Tesla stock, especially with Elon lately. So yeah, let's see. But nonetheless, let's jump into options flow. Which, by the way, if you're interested, Cheddar Flow, phenomenal option service platform. If you're interested, I have a link to it down below. You get a discount for trying it out. If you're interested, of course. But jumping into Tesla on the Cheddar Flow options flow, the bulls have outnumbered the bears. 16 million confirmed, or not confirmed, 16 million overall bullish flow, with only about 6 million confirmed bearish flow. Right at the end of the day, we had a massive leap come in for 1.7 million, but it is for 2027, though it's a 650 strike. That's not bad, right? So that's pretty good to see. Excuse me. And I like this 1.3 million call that came in as well. This did come in though when Tesla was at almost $413 per share. We're well below that now, obviously, so it is obviously down. But this did come in for a 430 strike, and it is for next week, and it is for earnings, which is interesting to say the least. So yeah, I mean, clearly maybe this whale does expect a pop post earnings. I'm not sure. Obviously, you know, there could be more to this story than meets the eye naturally, which is why I personally don't base my trades strictly off options flow. But I know some people do, and they do it very successfully. Everyone has their own strategy. But nonetheless, you know, that is the one that stands out to me the most for Tesla today. In terms of confirmed options flow for bearish or bullish flow on Tesla stock, let's see if I can find it anywhere here. It is not in the bearish flow. Let's see if it's in the bullish flow here somewhere. Maybe it's somewhere all the way down here. I mean, there's no way it's not. Am I missing it? I mean, there's no way Tesla is not at least somewhere on this list. Something, literally anything. Wow, it actually might not be. Take one more look here. Wow, it's actually nowhere on the list. Very interesting. Well, yeah, apparently it's nowhere on the list. Nowhere to be found. So let's see. I mean, hey, let's see. Earnings should be the factor that decides everything, but you know my current projection and what I personally believe. So let's see what actually happens. But thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you on Monday. Peace.